Well, he wants to meet. Yes, they can. Both Luke and Scott will be in the office on Friday, so they can set up their meeting that day. Luke wants to do something.
Luke wants to do something.
What does Luke want to do? Well,
What
he
does
wants to
he
meet
want
with
to do?
Scott.
Well, he wants to meet with Scott.
Does he want to meet with Scott? Yes,
Does
he wants to meet with Scott.
Yes, he wants to meet with Scott.
Why does he want to meet with Scott?
Why
Well,
does
he wants to meet with Scott to discuss ways to
he
reduce
wants to meet
expenses for their
Scott
company.
To discuss way to reduce expenses for their company.
Luke thinks the meeting will be quite long.
Luke thinks the meeting will be quite long.
Does Luke think the meeting will be quite long? Yes,
Does
he
Luke
thinks the
think
meeting will be quite long.
Yes, he thinks the meeting will be quite long.
How long does he think the meeting will be? Well,
How
he
long
thinks
does
the
he
meeting
think
will be about 3 hours.
Well, he thinks the meeting will be about 3 hours.
Scott doesn't have time for meetings this week.
Scott doesn't have time for meetings this week.
Does Scott have time for meetings this week? No,
Does Scott
he doesn't have time for meetings this week.
No, he doesn't have time for meetings this week.
Why doesn't he have time for meetings this week? Well,
Why does
it's
he
because
have
he just
time
got
for
back to
meetings
work
this
after being
week?
sick for a few days, so he has a lot of tasks to complete.
Well, it's because
The
he
meeting
just
between
got back
Luke
to
and
work
Scott
after
won't
being
take
sick
place
for a
this
few
week.
days, so he has a lot of tasks to complete. The meeting between Luke and Scott won't take
Will the
place
meeting
this
between
week.
Luke and Scott take place this week? No, it
Will the
won't.
meeting between Luke
Scott
and
is very
Scott take
busy
place
this
this
week,
week?
so the meeting will
it
take
won't.
place later.
Scott is very busy this week, so the meeting will take place later.
When will the meeting take place? Well, the
When
meeting
will
will
the
take
meeting
place
take
next
place?
week.
Well, the meeting will take
The
place
meeting will take place next week instead of this week.
The meeting will take place next week instead of this week.
Will the meeting take place next week instead of this week? Yes,
the
that's
meeting
correct.
take place
The
next
meeting will
week
take place
instead of
next
this
week
week?
instead of this week.
Yes, that's correct. The meeting will take place next week instead of this week.
Why will the meeting take place next week instead of this week?
Why
Well,
will the
it's
meeting
because
take
Scott
place
is
next
very
week
busy
instead
this
of
week.
this week? Well, it's because Scott is very busy this week.
Luke will be in the office on Monday.
Luke will be in the office on Monday.
Will Luke be in the office on Monday?
Will
Yes,
Luke be in
Luke
the
will be in the office on Monday.
Yes, Luke will be in the
Scott won't
office
be
on
in the
Monday.
office on Monday.
Scott will be in the office on Monday.
Will Scott be in the office on Monday? No,
Will Scott be in the
won't be
office
in
on
the office
Monday?
on Monday.
No, Scott will be in the office on Monday.
Why won't Scott be in the office on Monday?
Why
Well,
will Scott,
won't be in the
on
office that
Monday?
day because he'll be on vacation.
Well, Scott will
Somebody
be in
will
the
be
office
absent
that
from
day
work
because
on
he
Monday.
will be on vacation. Somebody will be absent from work on Monday.
Who will be absent from work on Monday? Well,
Who
it's
will be
Scott.
absent from work
Scott
on
will be
Monday?
absent from work on
Well,
Monday.
it's Scott. Scott will be absent from work
They
on
cannot
Monday.
set up their meeting on Monday.
They cannot set up their meeting on Monday.
Can they set up their meeting on Monday? Unfortunately,
Can they
no.
set up their
They
meeting
can't
on
set up their
Monday?
meeting on Monday.
Unfortunately, no, they can't set up their meeting on Monday.
Why can't they set up their meeting on Monday? Well,
Why can't
they
they
can't
set
do
up
it
their
because
meeting on
Scott will
Monday?
be in the office.
Well, they can't do because
Somebody will be on
Scott will
vacation
be
next
in the
week.
office. Somebody will be on vacation next week.
Who will be on vacation next week? Well,
Who will
it's
be
Scott.
on vacation
Scott
next
will
week?
be on vacation
Well,
next
it's
week.
Scott.
He won't be on vacation for 10 days.
He'll be on vacation for 10 days.
Will he be on vacation for 10 days?
Will
No,
he be on
won't be on
vacation for
vacation
10
for that
days?
long. He'll be on vacation for just a few days.
No, he won't be on vacation for that long. He'll be on some.
How many days will he be on vacation? Well, he'll be
How
on
many
vacation
days
for
will
3
he be on
days.
vacation? Well,
He
he'll
won't
be
be
on
back on
vacation for
Wednesday.
3 days.
Will he be back on Wednesday? No,
Will he be back
he
on
won't be back on
Wednesday?
Wednesday. He'll be back
No,
later.
he will be on Wednesday. He will be back later.
When will he be back? Well,
When will he be
he'll
back?
be back on Thursday.
Well, he will be
Luke
on
won't be in the
Thursday.
office on Thursday.
Luke will be in the office on Thursday.
Will Luke be in the office on Thursday?
Will
No,
Luke be
he
in the
won't be in the
office on
office that day.
Thursday?
He'll be somewhere else.
Well,
Where will he be? Well,
Where will
he'll
he
be at
be?
the hospital.
we will be at the hospital.
Why will he be at the hospital?
Why
Well,
will he
he'll
be
be
at
at the
the
hospital
hospital?
because he has an appointment with his doctor.
Well, he'll be
They
at
can't
the
set up their
hospital.
meeting on Thursday.
They can set up the meeting on Thursday.
Can they set up their meeting on Thursday? No,
Can
they can't set up their meeting on Thursday.
No, they can set up the meeting on Thursday.
Why can't they set up their meeting on Thursday? Well,
Why can't
they
they set
can't
up
do
the
it because
meeting
one
on
of them has a
Thursday?
doctor's appointment that day. Who has a doctor's appointment that day? Well,
Who has
it's
a
Luke.
doctor's
Luke
appointment
has a
that
doctor's
day?
appointment that day.
Well, it's Luke. Luke has a doctor's
Both
appointment
Luke
that
and
day.
Scott will be in the office on Friday.
Both Luke and Scott will be in the office on Friday.
Will both Luke and Scott be in the office on Friday?
Will
Yes,
both
that's
Luke and
correct.
Scott be in
Both
the
Luke
office
and
on
Scott will be in the
Friday?
office on Friday. They can set up their
Yes,
meeting
that's
on
correct.
Friday.
Both Luke and Scott will be in the office on Friday. They can set up the meeting
Can they
on
set up their
Friday.
meeting on Friday? Yes,
Can
they
set
can
up their
set up their
meeting
meeting
on
on
Friday?
Friday because both
Yes,
of them will
they
be in
can
the
set up the
office.
meeting on Friday because both of
They
them will
can't
be
set
in
up
the
their meeting
office.
on Thursday.
They can set up the meeting on Thursday.
Can they set up their meeting on Thursday? No,
Can
they
set up
can't
the
set up their
meeting
meeting on Thursday.
No,
But
they
that's
can set
okay.
up the
They
meeting
can
on
set up their
Thursday.
meeting
But
later.
it's okay. They can set up the meeting later.
When can they set up their meeting? Well,
When can
they
they
can
set
set
up
up their
the
meeting
meeting?
on Friday.
Well, they can set up the meeting on Friday.